As we dig ever deeper into the world of boosting or building customer confidence, not in us, but in themselves and their ability to make large scale decisions on behalf of their company, one of the things that's particularly interesting that came out of Gartner research right before my departure was the degree to which customer confidence is directly and statistically significantly impacted by the degree to which customers perceive a clear difference between one supplier and similar suppliers, so the perception of differentiation. And at the time, that particular note seemed kind of self-evident, so it sort of went under the radar screen. But I think the thing that's particularly interesting about this specific data point is the degree to which that perception of difference really becomes, in many ways, the perception of nuance. Because let's face it, particularly in a digital world where customers are learning on their own and a huge percentage of them say they'd prefer to buy a B2B solution without ever talking to a sales rep at all. Now, whether or not they can do that or not, no question that they gravitate at least first, if not continually and continuously, back to digital as part of their buying journey. And this world of digital is particularly interesting because, as the author Nicholas Carr in his book The Shallows tells us, the world of digital is a world of what he calls shallow learning. It is the world of skimming and scrolling and scanning. It is not the world of deep and engaged learning and debate and thinking deep thoughts. So you skim across the surface. Now, why does that matter? Because it's very unlikely that you're going to perceive clear differences between one supplier and another on your own, independently, in a digital world where you're just skimming and scanning and scrolling, because many of those differences between one supplier and another, let's face it, are actually quite nuanced. They're very subtle. They're critically important. I think we'd all agree, particularly if you're the supplier who's trying to talk about your difference. But nonetheless, many times those differences are not necessarily self-evident. And customers who are moving quickly through a digital learning journey, sometimes just to get through it in general, partly because they don't want to talk to a person, they fail to see and appreciate those differences, and most importantly, as a result, they fail to feel particularly confident in their choice of supplier A versus supplier B. It winds up feeling kind of like a coin flip, and in general, that may not be such a bad idea, except for the fact that you're spending 5, 6, 7 figures on these particular deals. If it's a multi-million-dollar deal, you don't really feel particularly good about it coming down to a coin flip. So you go back and do more research, oftentimes in digital, where you do more skinning and scanning, and you continually fail to see nuance. Now, I think there's two things about this that become really interesting. One is, this I think is where there's a human element to sales that could be potentially very important. So if not in the digital, I think for marketers or those creating digital experiences, I think there's a very interesting question of how do we create more opportunity to appreciate, to see, to perceive nuance in a digital world, given the way that digital works. Let's park that over here and talk about a different question, which is, to what degree can we use our humans, and as it were, human intervention, by that I mean essentially sales professionals or customer success professionals, to interact with customers, maybe even through that digital experience in such a way that their particular role is to highlight those differences and to educate customers on the importance of those nuanced differences, but to do so without simply falling back on features and benefits and talking about speeds and feeds and how we're better or faster or smaller or bigger, whatever it might be. It's a bit of a tightrope walk, to be sure. And I think one of the best ways in which customers can really, or sales reps can really differentiate themselves with customers and really stand out and show not just a nuance, but a very clear difference, is not just in talking about what they sell, but just in their behavior around how they sell. So maybe the best way to differentiate ourselves as suppliers, and particularly as supplier sales reps, is to engage that customer in a conversation about their perceptions of themselves and their business and what they're trying to do and what's valuable to them in the first place, given their objectives and tactics and metrics and targets and timelines. And I think that's where this conversation really can go, and your opportunity to truly show difference, both in terms of how you show up to that conversation and the content of that conversation once you have it, and to help your customers not only see that difference, but to feel confident in that difference, and as a result, feel confident in themselves in making a decision for that difference going forward.